Hey guys, Trigger John coming at you with another Diablo Immortal video. This video is going to be all about the Diablo Immortal classes in the game, as well as what you should be aware of, how you should really look these characters and kind of understand what you're going to be using them for. Because some are going to be different. Some are going to be ranged, some are going to be up close and personal, some are going to be support, and some of them will actually do more damage than others. However, none of the classes listed are actually bad. They all have their certain role, and that's going to be kind of what this video talks about. Is we're going to do a high level of each class. I will go into a more better breakdown of each individual class as the week goes on, but I wanted to give you guys a really quick brief idea of the classes that are currently played in the game, and I want you guys to be able to see that there are both a male and female version. The animations are different, as you can see here, provided by the video.ign created for us. Definitely stay tuned, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this video. All right, so like I said, we will go over a high level of each class today. And the reason why we're going to do a high level of it is because there's a couple of things to keep in mind when you go to decide to pick a class for this game. One, when you start the game, essentially just like any other ARPG game, where you come in there and you got to decide what type of a character do I want to play, how am I going to build them, what abilities am I going to particularly take, what gear am I going to focus with, what are the things that I'm going to have to really be aware of. For example, I'm a PoE player. That's one of the first things before you can even start a league is you got to know exactly what those characters can do, where they benefit at, and where they really, maybe they don't shine so well in this circumstance, but they shine well with others. Those are the kind of things you got to think of when you're thinking of classes. Now, in Diablo Immortal, it's going to be kind of similar to the same thing. You're not going to want to just grab, for example, I have the Demon Hunter pull up. You're not going to want to grab 4 Demon Hunters and say, okay, let's go. It's all DPS. We can easily take everything out, right, John? Well, not really. Don't get me wrong, you're not going to be held back to a point where you can't progress in the game, where you can't daily farm, you can't have fun in the game because you picked a class. However, when you want to do the in-game dungeons or raid mechanics, you need to be cognizant of what character you have and kind of what abilities you pick. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to scroll here, for example, on the Demon Hunter's abilities. These are all different abilities that the Demon Hunter can have. He unlocks them at different parts of the game via different levels, and these can also change and become attributed depending on the gear or gems that he has equipped. So we've already introduced a wide variety of skills, as you saw there, and we're going to also introduce a wide variety of equipment as well as gems, which may completely differ the character and the gameplay of this character. So from a high level and a high perspective, what you guys need to really be aware of is when you're going to go ahead and you're going to play as one of these characters, you need to be thinking of, okay, what is my play style? What do I enjoy? As well as, okay, am I going to play in a group? There is group play in there. We do have war bands that can really help boost the amount of EXP that you get. And it just promotes togetherness and playing together and working as a team. You need to be cognizant of, okay, is it going to be worth my time to play as a solo character? Or do you want to go ahead and take this information and go, well, I want to make a war band of 8 and I want to run with this type of a strategy. It's all about how and what your playstyle is going to be. Now, for example, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to talk about the Demon Hunter. That's the character I'm going to be going with. He is my first choice. I will 100% be playing as him. Now, I have 2 options. The reason why I'm going to be playing as the Demon Hunter is I myself am an archer. I enjoy archery in real life, and my character is an archer. I'm also one of those people where, I enjoy good range single target damage. I think it's a lot of fun. There's not really a tank class in this game, so I won't play that. That's usually what I play in my MMO RPGs. But there's no direct tank that just taunts and everyone else does damage. So you really have to have a certain play style. Well, I'm either super aggressive or I'm super aggressive, but really, really tanky. So in this case, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pick the Demon Hunter, and that's because I am who I am. Now, I have options. So notice I have 2 primary attacks here. I have other damage abilities. I have control abilities. I have movement. I have all these different passive abilities or abilities. Now, something to note is you only get 1 primary stat or primary skill, and the rest of these you get 3. So When we count these down, I have two primaries to choose from. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different abilities to pick from, and I only get to utilize 3 at a time. This does not mean you are pigeonholed on having to use only those 3 the entire game. You can swap them out, and in fact, you will swap them out depending on what type of content you're playing, whether it's going to be PvE or PvP. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, John, I thought this video was about classes. I feel like you're getting on a tangent. Well, I am and I'm not. And the reason for that being is because before we can talk about what class is what and what they do, you need to be aware of what you're really buying into when you're playing the game and what you need to be cognizant and aware of before you go ahead and just pick something because you think it's cool. For example, I do have the Diablo Immortal website pulled up. When you select different tabs here, it'll show you kind of like their animations, and it gives you idea like, oh, are they going to be cool, are they not going to be cool, so on and so forth. However, that doesn't really make or break the abilities. The things to note are, for example, the Demon Hunter is a single target massive damage dealer unit. He has almost no abilities that do any type of buff. He is really the only reason why you go as a Demon Hunter is because, one, you'd like to see the carnage, you're all about the damage. Also, because he's a super great boss killer. So this makes him very, very good in those types of situations. However, like you would think if you were to have a secret crossbow agent playing any type of game, well, there are cooldowns to all of his abilities. What happens if he's on cooldown for all of his abilities? Like say, for example, Reign of Vengeance, which has a 16-second cooldown. And then if you keep going down here, you have Sentry, which has an 18-second cooldown. And you have Spinning Chakram, which is another 18-second cooldown. Not that you wouldn't necessarily pair those together, but Vengeance you will definitely pair with probably Sentry. And those are 18 and 20-second cooldowns. So where does that leave you in the game? That leaves you very vulnerable. This means that you're going to be very prone to attacks, and you gotta run. I mean, so these are things to keep in mind when you're going to play as characters. You may say these characters look great, I really like the idea of them, I'm all about the bossing, I'm all about the single target damage. However, are you about the lifestyle of you have to really maintain the cooldowns of your abilities so that way you don't die because unfortunately you can't attack? Because the Demon Hunter is probably the squishiest in the game, but he is the strongest single target nuker that does basically no control. Now, moving on, we have the Wizard. The Wizard, well, he's gonna do kind of the same thing as the Demon Hunter. However, he's got a slightly different kit. Now, when I played the beta, I actually played more as a Wizard than I did a Demon Hunter. I did play the Demon Hunter class, I enjoyed it. However, I wanted to play as the Wizard because it has a certain ability that I'm very keen to, being a Path of Exile player. I really like to be able to just dash around, aka teleport dash. It was a nice ability. It reminded me so much of like Flame Dash and whatnot from Path of Exile that I was like, hey, I like this ability. I want to just keep playing with it because I'm playing the beta to have fun, not to necessarily become first in the world. I wanted to know that the game was going to be viable for me to want to do content on and want to play before I wanted to go through and go, okay, well, what's the best abilities? It just so happened though that teleport is one of the best abilities for the Wizard. And once again, we have multiple damage and different synergies with this kit and 2 main abilities. Now, the thing to note with the Wizard is the Wizard, once again, he is primary attack. That's what he's going to pretty much do. As you can see here, he can do a massive ice attack as well as he does an arc lightning attack. Both are very, very high damaging. There's some pros, there's some cons to this, but he can do a little bit of AoE with these abilities. But the thing is Electrocute is going to do the AoE, but you're going to lose and have a lot of damage that falls off. So you definitely want to keep these in mind. Now, also keep in mind that depending on what type of gear that you are running, this may change. I do know there is a piece of gear that will change the Wizard's cooldown or extension on a couple of different abilities. Now, that will definitely be coming, and when it does, we will be updating the spreadsheet to include all of the gear that will change this. However, some things to note here is a lot of these abilities, once again, don't have necessarily super long cooldowns. Like Meteor, for example, is a 9-second cooldown. That's going to be a pretty spammable ability. However, it's going to take your mana to use this ability, so you need to make sure that you're managing everything you're doing. So you can't always just necessarily go, okay, well, this guy's going to do a lot of damage for me. He's going to do maybe a little less single target damage, but more AoE. So I'm just going to take him and I'm going to spam everything. You still will have to require some sort of a tax, so to speak, on how to actually play the character. But one thing to notice is you do have all the elementals. You have everything that a wizard would necessarily have, and he's definitely going to be someone who's going to be very cognizant and viable in a ability or in a warband, so to speak, because honestly there is no bad class in the game. Wizards are going to get more geared towards people who want to play solo, but they want to have kind of the option to also play as a group, because they do have some support, as well as they have a better chance of playing solo by themselves than a demon hunter will. Now, the next one to talk about is going to be the monk. Now, the monk is probably going to be the most underplayed, underclassed character in the game. However, I feel like he just kind of gets a bad rap. And the reason being is the monk is very powerful. He has a lot of great abilities. He really is going to be a great character. However, the thing to note with the monk is, one, he's a physical attacker, melee attacker. He is mostly AoE. He doesn't have a whole lot of single target damage. He doesn't actually do a whole lot of damage, which is kind of a problem, especially if you plan on playing the game solo. You're going to run into a lot of issues where the monk just honestly isn't going to be able to do it for you, because you're not going to be able to kill the targets. Now, once again, we have two primaries, we have multiple secondaries, and like I said, we will go through and go into a deep dive on each character this week. However, I want to give you the high level of each character, and for this case, the monk is an amazing support character. Most of his abilities that he has here are geared towards doing some sort of support or how to buff your teammates. Now, for example, soar into the sky, pulling along enemies and dealing damage to all nearby enemies upon landing is great. You fly, you go into the sky, you come down. This does an AoE damage dealing. It's pretty cool. It really helps for just doing damage, right? Now, he also has abilities where it's like, okay, well, how about Mystic Allies? What does this do? Summons 2 spirits, allow allies to fight by your side for 10 seconds. They have 100% of your life and deal damage with their attacks. So abilities like that make it to where your group goes from having a 4-man group to a 6-man group because of this ability. Granted, yes, it has a 44-second cooldown, so you're not going to have this ability up for a super long time. I think it only lasts for 10 seconds, but at one point in time, this will really get you out of a jam as long as you're working together. Also, he has another buff where, you know, he can reduce all damage taken, or reduces all damage by your allies within the circle by 50%. What this literally means is it places something down. As long as they're within that circle, it's 50% damage reduction. This is going to be needed for bosses. So the monk is super viable. However, he's just not going to do a whole lot of damage all on his own. So definitely be cognizant and aware of this when you're going to pick your classes. Now, the Barbarian is going to be probably one of the most commonly played characters in the game. I know a lot of people I've talked to are going to be like, yeah, I'm going for the Barbarian. And there's a few reasons why. The Barbarian is one of those characters where he does really, really well on his own. You can be a solo player and play as the Barbarian because he's super tanky. However, I don't know if you guys have realized the note that I'm trying to give you here, but group play in Diablo Immortal is going to be what really sets the game apart, because by working as a group, your EXP goes faster. You cap out your Paragon faster as far as like what's going to be valuable, what's not, so that way you don't have to necessarily play all day every day to really keep up and be first in the world, or even just to be, you know, to get all the best gear. So definitely want to keep that in mind, that maybe it's not something you always want to do is do solo play. However, the Barbarian is going to be your option if you're going to do solo play. He can do a lot of AoE damage. He is super terrible at single target damage, though. Definitely keep that in mind, because he's, well, if you're looking for single target damage, he's not it, unfortunately. He's got a few abilities that will do a little bit of damage as far as like single target, but they don't do as much damage as other abilities really should and or could. However, he does hit super hard when he does hit on the AoEs, so you can kind of spam it multiple times to make that work for you. He does have some AoE, or not AoE, sorry, he does have some champion buff skills that do apply to everyone else. He also has one of my favorite abilities, which is sprint buff. Increase your movement speed by 50% for 4.5 seconds. While activated, you are immune to movement and pairing effects and can move through enemies. This is great if you're having a oh crap moment and you got a jet before you die. Sprint will definitely, boom, let you get out of there before you take too much damage and die. That's why it kind of makes it a great solo playing build, because you're not dependent on your teammates, so to speak, to get out of a bad situation. However, this does take up one of your ability slots, so definitely keep that in mind when moving forward. The other thing to note here is, as you notice, if you're reading any of these as I'm scrolling down, a lot of these abilities are mainly just AoE abilities because that's what he does the most, and that's really where he excels. Now, his cooldowns aren't quite that bad. However, at 30 seconds of cooldown for a majority of his skills, these do tend to add up. So definitely need to be aware and cognizant of, if you're going to pick him, what kind of abilities you need to have and what you want to use moving forward. I highly recommend that you go through each and every character's kit before you go ahead and pick them, so that way you know exactly what you're getting into and if it matches your play style. Now, next we have is the Satyr. We only have 2 character classes left. The Satyr, in my opinion, is one of the better classes in the game. If I were to have to make a tier list in the game, I would probably say Crusader would be number 1, Barbarian maybe number 2, and Demon Hunter number 3 in my own personal opinion. Even though I am playing Demon Hunter and that is my favorite and in my opinion, the best class out there, I know realistically it's probably not. And that is because, like the Crusader, he does a lot of damage. What he does and can do is essentially he summons a steed, which allows you to move super fast in the game. You can do a lot of damage off the speed. You can do so much buffing abilities because of the kit that the Crusader has. Now, mount a Celestial Warhorse for 6 seconds, dispelling all movement and parrying effects, increasing your movement speed by 65, and replacing your primary attack with a strike. Now, what does this mean for a lot of people out there, and why I think this is probably the best ability out there in the game is, well, Drawn Quarter allows you to summon your horse, go attack a bunch of people, and you have no cooldown. That's what really makes the biggest difference is when you're doing these attacks and doing these primary attacks, there's a cooldown that's associated. You can't always just fire off attack and live. There is a cooldown. There is a checks and balances that has been met. Now, when you are riding the horse, primary attack is then replaced with strike. You can use that as many times as you want. As soon as the action has completed, you can use it again. That is quite different than a lot of classes in the game where you can pop off, like say the Demon Hunter's main and primary ability, which is just a scatter shot that does a lot of AoE damage, versus, well, you can just keep spamming it and just wipe out all the opponents in your way, as well as you're going to go super fast because you're on a horse. So rift clearing speed with the Crusader is nuts. He's definitely a very good choice out there in the game. I feel like a lot of people are going to be going with Barbarian and Crusader. I also want to point out he has a lot of buff effects as well as a lot of control effects. This literally allows him to really turn the momentum of a major fight, as well as a boss fight is pretty easy to maintain and sustain as long as you have 1 or 2 Crusaders, because keep in mind all these buffs are different for each character. And it's okay to go ahead and stack some of these because depending on the positionals of your team, if you have physicals and if you have range, you're going to want different characters in those spots to help boost the whole entire party. Now, last but not least is going to be the Necromancer. Now, the Necromancer, one, is going to look probably the coolest in my opinion. He's going to be a super impactful and very, very helpful character in the game. However, he's going to be based more so off of ranged attacks. He's not going to be a very good damage dealing unit. You're not going to see a whole lot of high numbers when using the Necromancer, but what you will see is a bunch of minions, a bunch of pets, a bunch of undead things walking around, dare I say. And he also has some interesting abilities that synergize well as a group, as well as with certain pieces of gear, allows him to recycle a few abilities quicker. And actually, as a Necromancer, you can choose whether or not you're going to be someone who raises the dead, or if you are going to be that one guy who just, I play a Necromancer, but I don't control the dead, and does a whole lot of damage. He does have that ability and it is an option. However, Command Skeleton is going to be one of probably the most common abilities taken by most people. And honestly, Necromancer is going to be one of those characters where if you have to pick one support in the game that you're always going to run with, honestly, Necromancer and Crusader are going to be the 2 top picked. Necromancer, I believe, really has a slight threshold above the Crusader. And the only reason being is because of the versatility and the fact that you can control more and more enemies, or more and more dead, so to speak, that allows your teammates and you to kind of evade some damage because they're going to get targeted over you. And that's my personal opinion. Now, A lot of people may or may not disagree, and that's totally fine. You are all welcome to your opinion. But via my opinion, I feel like the Necromancer is probably going to be one of the better support units to bring in, and then maybe the Crusader. All right, we've went on for a pretty long time. This was a super high level of the classes. I know I could have done so many things so differently in this video. However, I did not want to waste a whole lot of your time and show you all these special effects for all his gameplay and wait without going into a little bit more information as far as what the characters are. I'm sure by now, by the last character, you kind of got the hint in the notes of the video that you're going to want to go through each and every one of your character's abilities before you pick a character, as well as we'll be updating our tier list to show all of the legendary gear pieces in the game, because those will also impact what character you play with the gems, because that'll change maybe how their abilities work. So definitely keep that in mind before moving forward, and don't just pick a class because you feel like, oh, it's cool, it's pretty. Well, pick a class that you feel like you're going to really excel at and play well, because at the end of the day, you're going to be able to pick up a group and have a lot of fun playing together and building a camaraderie versus just being a solo player. But yeah, that's going to be it for the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope I didn't ramble on too long. Please like and subscribe. Let me know down in the comments what you are going to pick in the game. I really look forward to seeing all the comments and you guys letting me know what you're going to play as when the game launches. I know I am going to go super hard in the game. You will see me on launch day streaming on Twitch. We will be playing the Demon Hunter, and we're going to be going super hard. So can't wait to see you guys then. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.